Nation-states, this concept of each ethnos to have its own country, has been a trend for the last couple of centuries. And though it's not always going all that smooth, but anyway, there are curious cases when the majority of a nation live elsewhere but in their homeland. And the reasons being massive emigration, deportation, or just historically messed up borders, or everything at the same time. So here are 6 such examples, each with its own unique and typically tragic story. Mongolia and the Mongols. In, just about 3 million. Out, about 7 million. The genetic marker Mongols can be found across the entire Eurasia, throughout the stretch of the gigantic empire of Genghis Khan and his successors. Nowadays, there are about 10 million Mongolians, concentrated almost entirely within the core ethnic territory. But only half of it lies within the sovereign state of Mongolia. The rest is mostly in China, known as the Autonomous Region Inner Mongolia, where actually live twice as many Mongols than in Mongolia itself. The actual Mongolian diaspora, that is the migrants, stands at just about 120,000, living mainly in South Korea, the US and Czechia. And there's only 7,000 Mongols in the entire China outside their autonomy. Albania and the Albanians. In, 2.5 million. Out, from 4.5 to 7.5 million. The Albanian diaspora is the biggest and the freshest one in Europe. The first waves of Albanian immigration happened during the Ottoman conquest of the Balkans. Albania declared independence in 1912, but the Kosovo region did not make it to the state. During the Cold War era, the Albanian and Kosovo populations grew the fastest while remaining the poorest nation in Europe. And with the fall of communism and the Balkans getting turbulent again, hundreds of thousands of mostly young Albanians sought better life elsewhere, mostly in Italy and Germany. Armenia and the Armenians. In, just below 3 million. Out, from 4 to 7 million. Historical Armenia stretched from the Mediterranean to Caspian shores and was 10 times the size of the modern state. Since the 14th century, the area was divided between the Ottoman, Persian, and later Russian empires. And so Armenians fled from persecution, especially after 1915. Now the biggest Armenian diaspora lives in Russia and USA, each over 1 million. Israel and the Jewish people. In, almost 7 million. Out, from 11 to 14 million. The Hebrews lost their kingdom centuries BC. Their exile, called Galut, lasted entire historical eras. The movement of return, called Aliyah, rose by the end of 1800s. And the biggest wave of Jewish immigration happened as Israel got independent in 1948. The Jewish people are basically everywhere, but in the US alone live up to 10 million, which is, by my calculation, is more than the Israel itself. Ukraine and the Crimean Tatars. Yeah, it may sound confusing, but I will explain in a second. Officially, there are several native peoples in Ukraine besides Ukrainian, such as Crimean Tatars. Their ancestors came to Crimea in 13th-14th century, displacing the Goths, Greeks, and Genoese. They formed the Crimean Khanate, which existed for over 3 centuries, most time being the vassals of the Ottoman Empire. And that's why now in Turkey live by some estimates up to 6 million of people with the Crimean heritage. In 1944, the Soviet government deported the entire nation, including kids, mostly to the Central Asia. Up to half died within the next few months. With the breakup of the Soviet Union, most of the displaced Tatars and their families returned to Crimea. And about 200,000 still live in Uzbekistan. Ireland and the Irish. In, about 4 million, if to count only Republic of Ireland. Out, from 50 to 75 million. People had been living in Ireland for centuries. Those who could afford it sailed across the ocean, and the poorest went to the neighboring island. And so now, in the USA alone, there are up to 30 million self-identifying as Irish, or 1 out of 10 Americans. Northern Ireland is home to almost 1.6 million Irish, and up to 14 million in the rest of the UK. And also 1 of 4 Australians has some Irish blood. Well, here the line between the heritage and diaspora is quite blurred. With the similar success, we could include Spanish and the Portuguese, because Latin America, or the Congo people because slavery. And there are many examples that I did not include, but I believe I've pissed off enough people today.